I've never told this story publicly before, not because it sounds unbelievable, but because everyone who was there remembers it differently. This happened when I was a junior in high school. I went to a fairly normal public school in the US. 2 floors, old brick building, the kind that hadn't really been renovated since the late 80s. The ceilings were low, the hallways were narrow, and the floors always had that dull shine from being waxed too often. If you've ever been in a school like that, you know the smell. A mix of bleach, metal, and something damp that never really goes away. The bathrooms were no different, especially the girls' bathroom on the 2nd floor. That bathroom had 4 stalls. 3 of them were normal. Old doors, scratched paint, loose locks, nothing special about them. The 4th stall, the last one, was different. Not in any obvious way. The door looked the same chipped paint, same metal hinges, same broken hook where someone had once tried to hang their backpack. But no one used it. Not really. At least no one I knew. It wasn't a rule. No sign, no teacher ever said anything about it. It was just understood. Girls would line up for the bathroom during passing periods, and even if all 3 stalls were taken, people would rather wait than use the last one. Some would pretend they suddenly didn't need to go anymore. Others would leave and come back later. I remember noticing it early in the year and thinking it was just one of those unspoken high school things, like how everyone avoided certain stairwells or lockers for no real reason. At least, no reason anyone talked about. The first time I asked about it was to my friend Kayla. We were washing our hands after class, and the last stall was empty like always. "Why does nobody ever use that one?" I asked. Kayla didn't look at me right away. She dried her hands slowly, then shrugged. "I don't know," she said. "It's just weird." That was her exact word, weird. When I pressed her on it, she laughed nervously and said she'd heard someone got locked in there once, years ago. Another girl later told me it was because the toilet backed up all the time. Someone else said the door sometimes wouldn't open from the inside. None of the stories matched, but the feeling was always the same: discomfort. A few weeks later, I had reason to remember that stall. It was during finals week. The halls were quieter than usual, and the teachers were letting us use the bathroom freely because no one wanted distractions during exams. I asked to go during 3rd period and went to the 2nd floor bathroom because it was closest. When I walked in, the lights were already on. I remembered that because normally you had to flip the switch near the door. The room was empty. All 3 regular stalls were open. The last stall was closed. That should have been my first clue to leave. I didn't hear anything. No footsteps, no phone sounds, no one coughing or moving around, just the low hum of the fluorescent lights. I used the middle stall and finished quickly. As I stepped out to wash my hands, I noticed something that made me stop. The lock on the last stall door wasn't turned. The door was closed, but unlocked. I stood there for a few seconds, staring at it. For some reason, my brain immediately assumed someone had just left and forgotten to open it, but the floor underneath was dry. No shadows, no movement. Then I heard it. A sound coming from inside the stall. Not breathing, not crying. It sounded like fingers, slowly dragging across the metal divider. I froze. The sound was faint, but clear enough that I knew I wasn't imagining it. It wasn't rhythmic, it wasn't aggressive. Just a slow, deliberate scrape. I remember thinking someone might be messing with me. Maybe a prank. Maybe someone trying to scare whoever walked in. So I did the stupid thing. I spoke. "Hello?" I said, my voice coming out quieter than I expected. The sound stopped immediately. The silence afterward felt heavier than the noise had. I waited for someone to answer, to laugh, to say, "Got you." Nothing happened. I backed away from the sink and moved toward the door, my heart pounding harder with every step. As I reached for the handle, the stall door creaked, not opening, just shifting slightly.
like someone inside had leaned against it. I ran out of that bathroom and didn't stop until I was back in my classroom, breathless and shaking. I didn't tell anyone that day. I told myself it was probably pipes, or the building settling, or someone leaving through another door without me noticing. But deep down, I knew that wasn't true, because of what happened next. About a month later, a girl named Emily transferred into our school. She was quiet, kept to herself, and ended up sitting 2 rows behind me in English class. One day, during lunch, I overheard some girls whispering. Emily had gone missing. Not permanently. She'd been found later that afternoon in the nurse's office, crying so hard she couldn't talk properly. Rumors spread fast. Some said she'd fainted. Others said she'd had a panic attack. But one detail kept coming up. She'd been found sitting on the floor of the second-floor girls' bathroom, near the last stall. A few days later, she came back to school. She looked different, tired, pale, like she hadn't slept in weeks. I didn't mean to, but I found myself sitting next to her during a free period and asking if she was okay. She nodded. Then she said something I'll never forget. "I didn't know you weren't supposed to use it." I asked what she meant. She looked at me like she was trying to decide whether to trust me. Then she leaned in and whispered. There was someone already in there. My stomach dropped. She told me she'd gone into the bathroom during lunch. All the stalls were taken except the last one. She didn't want to wait, so she went in. She said the door locked fine. The stall was normal. No smell, no mess. She sat down. That's when she noticed the feet. Bare feet, facing her, on her side of the stall. At first, she thought someone was standing outside the door, until the feet shifted closer, under the divider. She froze, thinking maybe it was some kind of prank. Then the voice spoke. Not loud, not angry, just calm. Don't look at me. Emily said she covered her eyes and started screaming. Teachers came running. When they forced the stall open, there was no one there. No footprints, no unlocked windows, nothing. The school said it was stress, anxiety. They told her parents she'd imagined it. But here's the part that still makes me sick. When Emily described the voice, she said it didn't sound like a student. It sounded older and familiar, like someone she'd known once. After that, the last stall was permanently locked. No announcement, no explanation, just a metal sign taped to the door that said, out of order. It stayed that way until I graduated. Years later, I ran into Kayla again. We talked about high school, about teachers, about old memories. I finally brought it up, the stall. She went quiet. Then she told me something she'd never told anyone else. Back when she was a freshman, a girl had died in that bathroom. Not officially, but people knew. The girl had gone into the stall alone during class and never came out. By the time anyone checked, she was already gone. The school covered it up. New locks, new paint, new rumors, but they never fixed the one thing that mattered. And even now, whenever I walk into an old building and smell bleach and metal, I think about that stall and how some places don't forget who they're meant to hold. I'm sharing this story because I still don't know how to explain what happened. Not in a dramatic way, not in a something jumped out kind of way, but in the kind of way where years later, small details still don't line up, and thinking about them makes my stomach tighten. This happened when I was a sophomore at a public school in the Midwest. Nothing about the school stood out. 2-story brick building, long hallways, beige lockers lined up in endless rows. The kind of place where every locker had dents, faded stickers, and numbers scratched into the paint. I didn't believe in school rumors back then. I still don't. At least, I didn't. My locker was near the end of the main hallway, close to the locker room entrance. It wasn't a great spot, but it was assigned, so I didn't question it. The first time it opened on its own, I barely noticed. I was walking to class when I saw my locker door slightly ajar, just an inch or two. I assumed I hadn't shut it properly that morning. I pushed it closed and moved on. The second time, I noticed something was off. I clearly remember spinning the combination and tugging on the handle to make sure it was locked. I even remember the dull metallic click. Later, that day, after lunch, it was open again. This time, the door wasn't just cracked, it was fully open. My books were still there, nothing missing, nothing moved. I laughed it off, figuring someone was messing with me. Teenagers mess with lockers all the time. The third time is when I saw the scratches. They were on the inside of the door. Long, uneven lines carved into the metal. Not shallow, not accidental. Deep enough that my fingernail caught when I ran it across them. They weren't random either. They were clustered around the inner edge of the door, right where someone's fingers would press if they were trying to pull it open from the inside. I remember standing there longer than I should have, staring at those marks while students brushed past me in the hallway. Nobody else seemed to notice. Nobody slowed down. I didn't tell anyone. I don't know why. Maybe I didn't want to sound stupid. Maybe I didn't want to give the situation more attention than it deserved. For the next week, it kept happening. Sometimes the locker would be open when I arrived in the morning. Sometimes it would be open between classes. Sometimes it would be shut, but the lock would feel warm when I touched it, as if someone had just handled it. That part still bothers me. Metal lockers don't warm up that fast. One afternoon, I decided to wait. I finished my last class early and walked to my locker instead of heading outside. The hallway was mostly empty. The bell had rung and the usual noise faded quickly. My locker was closed. I stood a few feet away, pretending to tie my shoe, watching it out of the corner of my eye. Nothing happened. After a minute, I stepped forward and spun the combination. The lock turned easily, too easily. When I pulled the handle, the door opened, and that's when I heard it. A knock. Not loud, not aggressive, just a soft, deliberate tap from inside the locker. I froze. For a split second, my brain tried to rationalize it. Maybe another locker slammed shut nearby. Maybe the sound carried, but the hallway was empty, and the sound came from inches in front of my face. Another knock followed. 3 slow taps. I stumbled backward, fast than I nearly fell. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. I didn't scream. I couldn't. I turned and ran. I didn't stop until I was outside, standing in the parking lot, gasping for air like I'd been underwater. I skipped school the next day. When I came back, the locker was closed, locked, normal. No sound, no movement. But the scratches were still there. That's when someone finally told me the rumor. I didn't ask. A classmate mentioned it casually like it was old news. A student had died years before I transferred to the school. Sudden death. The official story was vague. Medical emergency. Accident. Nobody seemed to know for sure. But the rumor said something else. The rumor said his body wasn't found right away. According to older students, before authorities arrived, staff had temporarily hidden the body in the locker room area to avoid panic. One specific locker, close to the hallway. My locker. I laughed when I heard it. I told myself it was just another exaggerated school story designed to scare underclassmen. But later that day, I checked something. I measured the inside of the locker. It was slightly deeper than the others. I asked for my locker to be changed. I didn't give a reason. I didn't need to. Administration approved it without hesitation. No questions asked. The new locker never opened on its own, never made a sound, never had scratches. Years later, after graduation, I ran into a former janitor from the school at a grocery store. We made small talk. I don't know what made me bring it up. When I mentioned the locker number, his expression changed. He didn't ask what I experienced. He just said, "That one should have been removed." I asked why. He shook his head and said, "Some things don't stay where they're put." I still don't know what was knocking. I don't know if it was memory, guilt, or something that never left. But I do know this. Whatever was in that locker didn't want to be forgotten, and it definitely didn't want to stay closed.